Yeah, so I was in the transition school, and the public school system had let Sandy know that I would need to do that in order to take an exam to see where my skills were to qualify to go into the ninth grade. So I had to be back a year, but I was more than willing. They asked me, "Are you willing to do that?" And I said, "Absolutely," just so I could go to public school. I was excited to settle back into the Cape and get to know people around there again, and get reintroduced to the school system. And so I had a little bit of a tough transition that first year, keeping up with the mathematics and things like that. So they started me on a IEP, the individual education plan, and I really advocate for that now for youth. It's helped myself and my partner as well, and other people in our community with their education, just to have those extra supports through the public school. So they have you meet with, they do regular testing throughout the year to ensure that you're keeping up with your peers. They offer study halls, additional teachers and things like that, maybe tutors. So it looks different for everybody based on their plan. But that was one of the things that helped me to get to that next place in my educational steps. And then I had this phenomenal guidance counselor. um, yeah. You talked about the positives, and I can say she was one of the most
Oh,
incredibly influential and positive people.
thank you for sharing that, and I'm so glad to hear that. Especially right there in the school setting, you do need that support system. I know I've talked about that a while back as well, and we're both advocates for that, having the right mentors or leaders to kind of meet
Yeah.
you right where you are. Thank you for touching on the positive side of IEP. I kind of hear a lot more of the negative, but it also depends on each person's situation. Um, as far as being able to transition, and that really is where it's at. Listeners, I've said before that a lot of times youth, who are put in like a remedial situation is not because they have a behavioral issue like they've been labeled or can't learn. It's just a lot of times the home environment may not have been the most conducive to being able to focus, or in Wanda's case, in my case, transitioning. I mean, time you're transitioning and coming in and out of schools or a new environment, just being able to catch up. That's where the assistance is needed. So I'm glad to hear that you had a positive IEP or yeah, that transition for coming into school. So were you going into school? Were you able to like get through school and then um, 12th grade graduation, or how long were you there?
Yeah, so I was there for all 4 years, and I was back living with Sandy, my foster family, from age 4, right before 5 to 9. So I moved back with them from age 14, and they had some health issues that came up in my junior year. And so I ended up going through some respite homes and some temporary foster homes. I was in a foster home which was right down the road from their home. And so they became friends for life. They're still friends.
That's
Um,
awesome.
yeah, so it was it was a great network of support system. We had our ups and downs. I was a teenage girl, so I'm sure I gave them as much of a hard time as they gave me
Yeah.
about various things. And so that it was a transitional period again in high school. It was a challenge to keep up with my peers, and so my grades were not the best, but the experience of having they had the way they had the classes situated, you could pick more of the curriculum you wanted to go through, so it was
Oh, good.
pre-college preparation. Yeah, and I spent a lot of lunches alone because I just didn't want to explain. I had social workers coming into the classroom at different times,
Yeah.
and in some of my writings, I talk about at that time, the adopted parents had changed my name to Holly. So it was a completely different first, middle, last name. They had changed it and told me I needed to comply with that change, even though that was kind of changing my identity label. And so I struggled with that in high school. We would meet with my teachers ahead of time. Sandy and I would sit down and explain, this is a little bit of the background, and could you call me Wanda? Could you call me by my birth name? I had to show documents and papers, and so it just became a very big hassle to do that in that transitional time. And a lawyer even tried to get involved through DSS and help me with changing the name.
Yeah.
And so on my 18th birthday, my foster mother was there at the current time, and a social worker who was amazing came up to me and she said, look, happy 18th birthday. You're an adult now. I want, as your birthday present, I'm going to take you over to the courthouse. I've set up an appointment. We're going to go change your name and you're going to get your identity back. It still is very moving because for her to pay attention, she could have said, goodbye, you're 18.
Yeah.
But she remembered that was so important to me, and she walked me over to the courthouse and we celebrated with ice cream afterwards.
Yeah, thank you for the insight about that. I just hearing you say that, I'm questioning, like, I wonder why they didn't automatically dissolve that since the adoption was dissolved. Why didn't they kind of like let you revert back to, I guess because legally was changed. So
Yeah, it was changed through the court system. So it's a court process to go back and rechange it. And you also need to have, and I'm glad you brought that up, some of the work I've done recently in advocacy for foster youth and for adoptees in the state of Massachusetts. We were able to go present in front of the State House to have adoptees and foster youth be able to have access to their original birth certificate and those records. They were closed for a certain period. I think it was like 1989 to like 1997. There was I might have the dates wrong, but there was a time period where there was a policy put into place in the state where those folks born during those years do not have access to their original birth certificate if they were in foster care or had adoption. So we got that passed, and then we're just waiting for the governor to sign, and then we're going to have a nice celebration because it's a win. I don't think, for listeners out there, when you go, say you're 16 and you're so excited to go get your driver's license, for folks that have been adopted and were not able to have access to those original birth certificates, that helps you to do many things, get your passport, get your license to travel outside of the country. So those opportunities and freedoms are a little bit limited to those folks who don't have access to that. So it is quite a lengthy process with the courts and costs a lot of money to get those sealed records.
Thank you for sharing that side of it as well, Wanda, because then that goes back to I was saying earlier how there needs to be something in place, especially because that transition was beyond your control. It shouldn't fall on you. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. As you, as the youth, or now the adult, that responsibility shouldn't have fallen on you to get that corrected. I know the situation happened legally, but I don't know. I have some feelings about that. We could talk after. But no worries. But I'm glad to hear that, once again, is about the outcome, the positive outcome. And then just to hear your state, just you as a leader standing up to, hey, no, these are people's records. There's people who have questions. This shouldn't be sealed off. And we could go into another 3 hours explaining why were those from that time frame, but that's another video. I'm gonna just say kudos to you for just standing up to that and being able to petition for people to have the rights to their information. That should not be withheld from anyone. And so thank you for sharing that as well. It was another question. It was another thing you mentioned. Okay, the other question I had was, okay, I remember as a youth, the social workers would come to the schools, but it's supposed to be very private, and they're never supposed to come in the classroom per se. They're supposed to be like somebody from the office supposed to come get you, and then the meeting is supposed to be like very confidential. So am I saying this right? The social workers came in the classroom with you?
Yes. Oh, yes, each time.
Oh my
And it was announced to the class from the teacher, Wanda, are you in the back of the room? The social worker
gosh.
is here.
I'm so
You'll be
sorry.
going to
I'm
see
so
your
sorry.
family today. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
so
So
sorry.
there was a lot of bullying growing up. There's a lot of questions, but there was also a lot of empathy from kids who had either, who were in foster care, because
Yeah,
it was kind of, I've heard very across the foster care community, I've heard very different experiences and
yeah,
adoptees. That some people were like myself, alone. I was
yeah.
an island. I didn't know of any other foster kids that were
Oh,
in
yeah.
my school.
Yeah,
And I think that that's a good point of growth, is that having somebody else to resonate with. Some of the things that the adults shared was, well, we don't want the bad behaviors to rub off on each other. So if one kid is truant, we don't want them encouraging the other foster kid to run away from their foster home, sharing those kind of ideas. But if you look at it in a positive setting, having somebody else to resonate with makes you feel not so alone in those issues that you're experiencing, that the adults maybe not,
yeah,
they can't connect with. So I would like
yeah,
um, to see that opportunity be presented forward, to have like a foster club at the different schools where kids can check in if they want to. If they want to stay confidential, that's
yeah.
fine.
You know,
Um,
you
yeah.
may have to be the one to start that, and I will piggyback that 1,000%. Only because one, like you were mentioning, I'm so sorry that happened, and like you said, a lot of people have different experiences. I personally do not believe that that should have been handled that way. Allowed for the social worker to come in the classroom and then announced that that was your social worker, only because of confidentiality. And then, as you know, and I well know that bullying is real, and
Mhm.
it could add to trauma, especially when youth are picking because they don't understand.
Mhm.
I do appreciate hearing that there were youth who empathize because they could understand. So maybe, yeah, uh, we have a lot of talking to do afterwards, but yeah, maybe something can be petitioned and started, like an outlet, like a outlet for,
Definitely.
a
Yeah.
confidential outlet, and only the people who are wanting to, they could submit their names, and or confidentiality, and okay, well, I'm so and so too, and where are you going to be at? Oh, you're at school as well, and it'll be somebody can moderate it for it could be
Mhm.
a support group. It's not going to be anything crazy. So I don't know. We can talk. um,
Not a let's get together and bash our foster parents.
no, no,
But maybe they
no, no.
can,
Yeah,
they need to say how they feel too, so it has to be
yeah,
something open. But yeah, I'd love
yeah.
to chat with you about that further.
Yeah, they need to know that they have a safe place where they won't feel like an outcast. And I understand about that, eating alone and not really looking at everyone and not feeling as if you fit in, because everybody's in their own clique and their own thing, and you're like, I don't want to. I'm not like that, so I don't fit in there. And then, yeah, you get it, you get it.
Yeah, you're
So
that. I always say, with foster kids, they're kind of like the magical unicorn, because people think, oh, you don't have parents right now, or your situation's different. Like, how is that? How is it not having? And it's like they don't understand that there's a caring component, and
yeah,
then there's being like a teenager where you don't want to have, you want to
yeah,
be independent,
yeah,
but it's not. I think underneath it,
yeah.
kids just really need to have stability, and then a caring adult there that they can trust.
Exactly. And that's the heart of everything, especially for why we were even in those situations, needing to have the right nurturing, the right care. Um, and then unfortunately, for a lot of us, that wasn't available at the timings we were placed in those situations. But I'm glad to hear, just really, you've had a lot of dynamic outcomes through your journey. I'm so excited, and I appreciate you sharing. Um, so I was going to ask you about what are some of your wins, but you have quite a few wins that you've transitioned through those points and times. Um, so basically, you got through high school, and what was okay? So what was your new transition? So you got through high school, and of course, I know that was a huge accomplishment for yourself. And what was next for you leaving high school? Did you have any plans where you had like question marks? Did you want to kind of like take a break, or did you decide I want to um, consider college? Or what was the? You mentioned earlier like and this is going into your future, I guess. But now, like working with youth and advocating, when did that start stirring for you to want to do that? Was that down the road or coming out of
I
your?
think I really knew that I could do it when I had been chosen in my senior year to represent the school,
Oh,
and we
hey.
had some international students coming over. We had some people that were going to be looking at doing expansions on the school and some of the services, and so they asked me to be an ambassador, and I was like, me,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to survive high school here. I don't know why you would pick me. But my guidance counselor gave me some good insights, and she talked about, um, she said, I think you would be a really good social worker. I think someday you're going to share your story with people. And she was
Yeah.
giving me 10 years down the line, this is what I think you're going to do. And so she had me write out goals, and she was very realistic. She had me look at programs, things like that, that were potentials. I still didn't see that for myself. I was just trying to survive,
Yeah.
trying to figure out those interpersonal connections and emotions raging out of control, anger from the situation, and then sadness, and then excitement from events. And so I was trying to get a hold of that. And then all these other kids, I saw them talking to their parents and getting ready for college. And I thought, I haven't even,
Yeah.
it came down to the last 2 months, and everybody's like, did you get your letter? And I'm like, what letter? So nobody had taken the time to explain that part of it to me. So my foster parents at the time, the respite home I was in,
Yeah.
I was also visiting with Sandy while they were going through their health issues down the road. And so everybody started talking to me about, what are you going to do? Like, it was suddenly every decision was in my lap when I
Yeah.
had zero control over anything in my life before then.
Hmm.
Now it was like everything was
Yeah.
just going to be up to me. And I'm like a deer in headlights, like, oh, what are
Yeah.
you guys talking about? So they had me sign a piece of paper because, again, I had started ninth grade late. So I was 18 at the time during my senior year. So I had to sign back into care to finish out my senior year.
Okay.
So right before the end of the school year, we were ending in June, they came over and they said, okay, here's your options. You can go into the military.
Oh gosh.
You
Yeah.
can, this was right before Afghanistan. So we were getting into that conflict. And they said, so you can sign up for that. You can go to a local homeless shelter, we'll drop you off.
Oh my
Or you
God.
can apply for college, or you can couch surf. You can look for some friends that might take you in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Okay.
oh, talk about anxiety. So I mulled it over with the family I was with, and they offered some suggestions because their two girls they had adopted from Bolivia, so they were both looking very close in age. So they were both looking at college, and they were excited about the process. So they started talking to me about it, and I thought, my grades weren't the best. I'm not the best academic student, but I'll give it a try because my first choice was the military.
Yeah.
Um, but unfortunately, because I have some health issues, asthma and things like that, they said, no, we can't take you. Your scores were great. You know a lot of things, very strange skills. They asked me, how did you know, like a Jill of all trades, how did you know all these different things? And I just said foster care, that's it. And they said, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You pick up a lot of funny skills along the way, like carpentry and working on cars and things
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, so I decided on college, and I sent out the letter. My foster father, he helped me. I'm so grateful to him for his expertise in that area.
Yeah.
So with 3 girls, he got us all into college and helped
Oh,
us with
yay.
scholarships. Yeah, and then I was off, and I had no idea that in the summertime, nobody was still in school in the summertime.
Yeah. See, that's
So
what I've said this quite a few times. Right there, that I was in the same boat. Right there, where okay, everything now the decision fell on me. What you gonna do? What do you mean? What I'm gonna do? It's like it just came so quickly, and nobody is like. Whereas okay, I guess in a traditional setting, somebody would have a parent there saying, "Hey, we're getting you ready for college." All I knew is that okay, 11th grade, you have to take ACT, SAT, which I have kind of against those. I think that kind of weeds people out for the wrong. Okay. um, I have my views about that, but it should be something in place. And I keep saying we keep saying something should be in place, but I think we need to talk extensively when we leave the line. A lot of ideas forming up, but there should be something in place once again. That transitioning out, and especially for people who've been in our situations, we really have no one there. It's just like going to college, you have no one there. So stuff needs to be put in place for your journey to get through to that point, like a gap bridger for if it would have been a normal situation, you would have had like a team there rooting you on. You would have had like, okay, setting you up for these, okay, this is your options, this is your options. Not, okay, here you go, have a nice life.
Yeah, those scenarios to help you, right? Like you can
Yeah,
hand someone a manual. There's manuals out there and those are wonderful tools.
yeah,
But what if what if you do go to apply and then they say, okay, well, your FAFSA
yep,
wasn't done correctly.
yep,
And
yep,
then you're like, what did I do wrong? So
yeah,
having somebody, a live person to be able to walk through those scenarios and be able to check back in, okay, I did this first, I met with this part of the office,
yes.
and now they're telling me that I won't have, enough to cover the dorm. What can I do? Well, you may not have to partake in activities. So could you take that cost off of the tuition? So problem solving, having somebody to bounce those ideas. I agree with you. Lots of opportunity for growth.
Yeah, yeah. I really appreciate your testimony. I'm super excited. You're like the sister. We can mesh on a lot of things
Yeah.
you've said, and so it just sounds to me that I definitely commend your testimony, and I know that a lot of what you went through was not easy. But like I said earlier, I commend your strength for just your endurance of being able to get through it and learn from it, and just know that it wasn't. It didn't feel good, but it helped propel your development and your growth. Um, so I'm assuming you did progress on. You went to college. What was your studies, and what was the vision to then now help the youth? Your current. How did it transition to your current?
Yeah. So I am grateful that, people kind of pushed me in that direction of college because
Yeah.
I didn't have that motivation. And then I ended up loving it. It was very different than high school, more open studies. And, it gives you a voice, a platform, so you can start writing, sharing those stories. And you meet with other intellectual people that are, you don't have to go to college to be an intellectual. I'm always rooting for people that even if they decide to take a different path, we need to honor that as well. Um, but, my experience going through school, I started getting much better grades. I ended up being homeless because it didn't work out to stay with people. So I didn't have a choice at that time. I got a vehicle with a friend, and I ended up spending 2 New England winters and 2 years in my car before I got some assistance with that. But there's a wonderful woman who has a book. I can't remember her name. I apologize, but Homeless to Harvard. I had seen
Yeah.
her in the orphanage, and she had come to speak and talked about her experience of being homeless and going to college and being incredibly successful academically and with her career. And so I always kept that in the back of my mind, like if she did it, I can do it. And that was truly an inspiration. I hope to be able to tell her that someday, that she really helped with that. But so I did sociology. I wanted to study about psychology, and so I did a double major at Curry College for that. Um, and I transferred to a couple different schools because I really wasn't in the beginning doing well, but then once I transferred, especially to Curry, their team was able to help me with my academics and sit me down. Much like the IEP, they kind of put like a special plan together, like you're going to meet with your advisor every month and you're going to get some tools and tips on how to handle this in the classroom. And so I graduated with top honors there.
Yay!
And yeah, something I never
Yeah.
never even thought I'd be on honor roll. I was getting F's and D's in high school, C's if I could pass. And so then I went on to I met my partner. I was friends with his sister in high school, and so he encouraged me and said, well, do you feel like this is the end of the line? Is it going to help you to, my dream was to help foster youth, especially with legislation, policies,
Yes.
allowing them to have their adoption certificate, their birth certificates, things that would prevent those kind of stops along the way that held me back. I wanted to see others be uplifted and maybe have an easier flow of a time, and to be able to have those supports. And um, I'm sure you can attest that with school you get a lot of exposure to different people and different ideas, so
Yeah.
it helped me to heal. It was a healing process. Um, and they gave me ideas of what I could do with my life beyond anything I ever imagined. So I went off to grad school,
Yes.
and I met some incredible thinkers there, and they talked about. I had a professor who was a lawyer, forensics lawyer, and she said at that time women were getting into political science, and I thought, really, is that a thing? And so, so she kind of inspired me to explore that, because I tried to take the LSAT. I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought, I'm going to fight for foster kids. I'm gonna be a champion in that way. And I failed my LSAT, and I was so upset, even though they said most people fail, the first time is really hard. But I thought, this isn't how I want to do it.
Yeah.
I want to be, I love that there's lawyers out there for children, and they're doing a lot of great, important work for that. But I wanted to be more on the creative side of putting out, some works in that way. And that's
Yeah.
how it kind of began.
Yes. Yay. Thank you so much, Wanda, for just your transparency. And I really appreciate that testimony you gave, just really taking us on your journey from, the beginning to where you are now, and especially what you're wanting to progress with going to the future. And you do have a voice, and just to hear, really commend your transparency. Listeners, I definitely wanted you to get to know Wanda and her testimony, because I'm pretty sure many of you may be able to relate, whether you have gone through any of those systems, the foster, adoption, orphan, or underserved community, or just know somebody who has. And hopefully her testimony can give you more of an empathetic insight to understand that life does happen beyond our control, but we can take a lot of those things that we've gone through, those setbacks, and progress towards the future, and hopefully help others to do the same. And it sounds like, Wanda, you are making those strides now. Could you tell listeners? So you are definitely, like I said, a triple threat, and you are now really making waves, and really have a voice to now help a lot of the youth you're wanting to help. Not just with the passing of that bill. And I'm rooting, if legislators, if y'all listening and y'all know that she signed that petition, please go ahead and pass that petition. So the youth can have their birth certificates, can have their social security cards, their passports, so they can progress forward as being the productive citizens they need to be for their futures. And I know a new position opened up for you as a really a program project coordinator. Can you tell listeners about that new position you're going into?
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I have to accept it today. But I was
Yay!
presented with, yes, and I was presented with the offer, and so I'm going to be working with specifically women in our community and helping them to access resources. It's all about knowing what's out there. A lot of times it's hard for people to know what's available for me. You have to look at income brackets. You have to look at qualifications. Again, checking those statistics boxes
Oh my gosh! Oh my
that
gosh!
we don't like. But once you get through that uncomfortable part of it and you check all those boxes, then they let you know what's available. So I want to be able to be a guide for them, and just be working with some lawyers and other professionals in our community, and establishing those connections to be able to help the individuals who need that encouragement and empowerment to be able to advocate for themselves once they have the correct information to do so, and moving forward. So
Well, Wanda,
excited to start that journey.
yeah, no, I'm so happy for you and the opportunity to be able to do
Me
so.
too.
And you're gonna be, I know it, you already are, but I could see you're going to be a dynamic voice moving forward to continue helping those individuals, especially those women and the people from the community, help them right where they are. A lot of times, like you said, it is hard to find the resources or get the help you need, especially if you don't know where to look, especially for, your individual situation. And as we all know, everybody's situation is different. So I'm
Mhm.
excited for your journey progressing forward. Congratulations on your offer. I know you're
Thank
going to
you.
be phenomenal. You're welcome. And before we go, Wanda, two questions I want to ask you. Yeah, so what, besides authoring a book, what other projects and stuff you're looking forward to like progressing forward with? I know you want to do some writing. Could you go into a little bit about that, or do you have a title yet? And no worries if you don't. But
Yeah, yeah. The Village That Raised Me, that's going to be the book that I'm writing next. Right now, I'm working on my first book, which is a collection of poems that I wrote. It was very, very helpful to write those since I think the first poem was age 4. So when I entered foster care.
yeah,
And so I have all of those that I've collected throughout the years, and people have said to me, "Oh, you should get these together and put them out there." So I have binders that just traveled with me from storage to car and
yeah.
home, and so finally putting those together, I'm very excited to share that with everyone, and I hope that people can just pick it up and enjoy it. Something to resonate with if they've been in foster care, or just to have kind of an inside look of some of those processes of emotions, things like that we go through.
Yeah.
Um, and then right now, I'm very grateful to be working with Dr. John and the Foster Care Institute and his group, including yourself. It's been a joy
Yay.
to meet you. And I do feel like I have a new family dynamic. I've been working with Barbara. She's incredible. She has experience in theater and a background in media and writing. And so it's been wonderful to work on workshops with her. So we're multiple projects right now, but my focus is really trying to get those books done and doing the workshops to help youth with finding out what their gifts and their resiliency and their skills are, and connecting to resources in the community. And I'm so grateful, like I said, to have met this wonderful group.
Oh, yes, Wanda, we are so grateful to like get to know you as well. And listeners, the group that we're part of that Wanda's referring to, we have a phenomenal mentor. His name is Dr. John DeGarmo. He is the founder of the Foster Care Institute, and he has really kind of take myself and Wanda and the rest of us under his wing as far as just mentorship and allowing us to have really voices as emerging leaders. And so it's not just Wanda and myself, there's also Miss Barbara. There's a list of people, leaders that's phenomenal in what they do. And they are all relative, everyone's relative in some form or capacity to the foster, adoption, orphan, and underserved community. So I'm super excited because along with Wanda's testimony, I will be presenting a website that's going to highlight each of them and what they do. And so I'm, excited for you, the listeners, to be able to further connect with them on the Foster My Story platform. That's coming soon. Stay connected for that. My other question for you, Wanda, is what words of wisdom you've already given, like so many dynamic just breakthroughs in your testimony. But what words of wisdom would you like to leave listeners concerning, just if foster care, adoption, or, orphanages or underserved, or even if they've never related to any of that, what words of wisdom would you like to leave the listeners?
Yeah, I think that the most important thing in my journey was that I always looked for potential. So if somebody told me that I couldn't do something, I thought, well, how can I do it? And I guess that having kind of a rebellious spirit is not always a bad thing. I've heard of this out there in journalism where people talk about how can you use your teenager's rebellious spirit to get them to, do community projects or to get them to be involved. So
Yeah.
you're using that energy in positive ways. But I always say to the kids that I've worked with that if you can learn better, you can then know better and you can do better, and then eventually you'll be better.
Oh,
So yeah, it's a way that you can, just look for the positive people in your life, even if you have just one person,
yeah.
and you want to emulate their behaviors, because everybody expects you to to take on the behaviors of all the people that you've been surrounded with that were not positive influences, perhaps, or like when you were at home. And but if you can find one person and see how you want to kind of maybe take on some of those positives, you learn some better behaviors and coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
That's going to help propel you forward.
Yes, a huge golden nugget that Wanda just left. That's so true. Coming from those situations, everyone assumes you're going to be just like, and there's always a comparison, and unfortunately, it's not always positive. But thank you for just highlighting how there can be really a different narrative. We can find positive individuals, mentors, leaders, connections, and sometimes those connections are who or and with those that we may be labeled to say, oh no, you're going to be a bad influence. But maybe having a foster care group allows that connection and that sense of belonging. Maybe having a support system there or in a unique way, it will help the youth right where they are. Wanda, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I'm so excited to see the progression of your poems in your books as you are working hard on those. Congratulations on your new transition in life. You are already a leader, but perfect, just really a perfect transition for you to just be able to continue your expertise dealing with mentorship and really helping people right where they are, the community, and especially women, and meeting them right where they are. Wanda, thank you so much for being on Foster My Stories. You are awesome. And thank you so much for sharing your testimony here with everyone.
Thank
Listen,
you, Shalina. You're doing good work too. Keep it
oh,
up.
thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
it's so important.
Thank you so much. Well, listeners, we're now live here on Foster My Stories on YouTube. Feel free to leave any questions and comments you have for Wanda, and we will make sure she gets them. This content will be officially uploaded on the Foster My Stories Facebook page and the Facebook platform that for our group, which is like a live stream. And if anyone's listening or watching the replay, you can reach out to Wanda. Wanda, could you tell listeners the best place to connect with you, to leave questions, comments, or if you want to, if they want to network with you?
Sure, absolutely. You can reach me through my website. If you go on there, you can sign up to email, and that will get directly to me. So it'll be fosteryd.com, or you can also reach me directly at fosteryourdestiny@gmail.com, and that would be the best way to connect.
Yes, yes, Foster Your Destiny or Foster YD. So fosteryd.com and Foster Your Destiny at gmail.com. Yes. Well, we will definitely be looking forward to like sending some people your way to connect with you. And
Yes.
yes, and thank you so much once again, Wanda, for just being uh, really a positive light and just an active leader here in the community. And also, listeners, if your background, your present, or your upbringing connects to the foster, adoption, orphan, and underserved communities, I would love to connect with you as well. You can reach out via the email or really the Facebook page. Reach out to Shalina Michelle Tate on Facebook. You can also connect via the comment section. If you want to leave an email or connect, you can inbox this stream or the replay stream to further connect with myself and with the podcast and with Wanda, who's doing phenomenal work. You can also catch this replay that's going to be on the other platforms as well: Red Circle, Spotify, Amazon Audible, and Amazon Music. Um, Google Podcasts, and there's also a Foster My Stories Facebook page. You could check this out as well. And so today we learned really to just don't let your past hold you back, really, and don't let anything from your past, any setbacks or disappointments, stop you from being able to progress and be a light for others. As we've heard in Wanda's testimony, that she's had several setbacks in her life, but she was able to really turn those around to really just be progressive in not only living situation, but her learning situation. I love how she reflected on how she was put in a remedial type situation, but she was able to then help the people that was in that situation with her. And so that's just a testament of just being able to progress beyond the expectations of, like she calls, statistics, to just be able to like break that labeling. So really appreciate her testimony. Listeners, feel free to reach out to her at the website, fosteringyourdestiny.com, or fosteryd as well, fosteryd.com, fosteringyourdestiny@gmail.com, and to further network with her efforts. Wanda, thank you so much. And remember, listeners, as always, being fostered, adopted, orphaned, or coming from the underserved community simply means you're labeled, in my eyes, as gracefully chosen. Remember to tell that to somebody you know, and take care.
Thank you.
You're welcome.